Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 3 of the Paigncast. It's a podcast where we want to go ahead and shine a light on the people that brighten up our city. Before we jump into that, I want to say, you know what? I think we don't have a sponsor, a hunt for this episode, but we've got one on the line. And if you are interested in becoming one of the sponsors, the next 2 episodes are spoken for. After that, it could be yours. Again, what do you have to offer? Right now, the offer is very, very low. You could be a title sponsor of this podcast for just about nothing. So again, what do you have to offer? We're willing to take it. Something else I wanted to mention, I've been customizing some shoes lately. If any of you guys are interested, feel free to give me a call. I went ahead and threw them in the back here just because my wife's getting sick of me having all these shoes sitting around my house. So if you guys are ever interested, feel free to give me a call on that. And as you know, I am the GOAT of quote. Happy to give you guys a quote on any of your insurance needs. You guys know where to find me. We've got a very special guest in the GOAT Pin with us today. You guys know him from CU Comedy, Mr. Jesse Tuttle. Jesse, thank you for coming in and sitting with us today, man.
Hi, Austin. Thanks for having me. I hope this isn't the make or break on that sponsor you may or may not have, because I might screw this up for you.
You know what?
I
honestly,
may not be a good breaking point for that.
They're not on yet, so that's okay. Again, it could go either way at this point.
Or I could sell them on it, and then I want to
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Dude. Exactly. Before we get into this, plug, promote anything you got. Go ahead. Tell us where can people find you.
Oh, wow. Let's do the rundown real quick. The easiest one is cucomedy.com. For people, sometimes people, I put in like SEE, like actually seeing you. So I always have to, I don't want to belittle anyone when I say it's like the letter C and U as in Champaign-Urbana. So cucomedy.com. Also on Instagram and Twitter at cucomedy. My personal one, just Jesse Tuttle Comedy on Instagram and Champaign-Urbana Comedy on Facebook. And you can find me through all of those. If those aren't good enough, you can find me.
Sure.
All of our stuff is just basically one big marketing scheme. So
gotcha.
We're everywhere.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I've seen your stuff before. I want to know how you got started into comedy. Take me back to when you first found an interest in it, right? And then how do we get to where we're at today?
Oh, wow. I said that somebody asked me that question in like a written interview, and I told them, I'm going to be really sad if I can sum this up in like 3 sentences, my entire from beginning to end. And then I did it in 3.5. And that was depressing.
Okay.
So I'm not going to make this long, but also I'm going to make it seem like I did some work in those years.
Sure.
I didn't. Just starting in stand-up and just comedy in general. I think when I was a kid, I think like everybody, like I would hear my family laugh about stuff, but I had no idea why they were laughing because I was like 5 or 6 years old. And then once, I don't remember how old I was. I remember saying something that made my family laugh. I could not repeat it. I couldn't even think of it if I tried, but it was the reaction that kind of gets
your first pop.
Yes. That first, you got a little bit of that trickle on whatever you said, and it gets addictive. It is a very addictive, just the sound of it, whether no matter what it is. Yeah. And I think from then, I don't think I ever thought about wanting to do it because I didn't start doing it until I was like 27, 20, because I'm only on year 11, 30 years. Yeah, about 11 years now. So 27, which is kind of getting late started in a way, because now a lot of kids are getting, I say kids, but it's the college kids when we run our open mics. Sure. They're like 19, 20 getting started. And like, I really wish I would have got started then. Yeah. But I never even thought of doing stand-up at all. Like I didn't really watch it much as a kid. It was like a few here and there. And then one day, like we were like 27, 28, it just, for whatever reason, I gave it a try at an open mic. So I never had a linear, like I was practicing jokes in the 4th grade and trying them out on teacher. I think I tried to be funny, which isn't always good when you're trying to be funny. Sure. But there was something about just going back to when I was 5 or 6 years old, something about that reaction that, I don't know what that symbionts of something about just you hear it and it's addictive. Sure. And I think that just kind of stayed with me until I ended up doing it.
Gotcha. So you figured out at a young age you like making people laugh. How does that transition to take me back to where you're like, maybe on stage? Like, I mean, how did you kind of go from, I like being funny to, I'm going to try and work with a crowd?
You know what's weird? I've tried answering that before when I've had like a similar question, and it's like, it's horrible. I don't know. Yeah. I don't even remember why we got to that, where it was trying to do stand-up. Like, I think about probably like a month or 2 before I ever signed up to do it, which the first time I ever did it was in Peoria at the Jukebox Comedy Club. I dare not do it anywhere close to where my friends or family could possibly see me. Sure. But if you would have asked me, it was like 6 weeks, maybe a month before I ever did it, I would have never thought of it. Yeah. And to this day, I can't even remember why I decided, like, let's do it. Right. But it was never this long. I talked to some people who sign up for like the open mics that we run now, and they'll be like, oh, I've been for 6, 8 years. I've always wanted to do this, been planning it, been coming. I've been too nervous. And mine was, I don't even remember why I signed up. Which is probably not good, but I was like, I never had like a desire or a drive to do it. I always liked it. Yeah. But never desire or drive to do it. Sure. And then it just, I know it's such a, a weird answer because it's a non-answer. I don't know. But I remember just being like, screw it, we're doing it.
Sure.
And then we just did it.
How did it go? Do you remember your first set at all?
Yeah. A little bit, because it was definitely an open mic. I'm probably being very kind when I say there was 15 people there.
Yeah.
There may have been 15 people, but 13 of them were signed up to go on stage.
Sure.
So it wasn't a very big audience.
Yeah.
But I remember it was kind of like we were saying a second ago, where I distinctly remember, I don't know what I said. I don't know how I said it. I distinctly remember saying something and there was a laugh.
Yeah.
And that's what gets addictive. It's like, I think that's why I continue to do it. If we wouldn't have got, when I say we, I have a twin brother, Justin Tuttle, who at the time we did a double act together. Mm-hmm. So if I say we, that's who I'm referring to.
Yeah.
I don't remember what we said, but I remember getting that one laugh, and it was like, we are great at
this. Yeah.
And then you get so addicted. It's like, and it was probably one person laughing because it probably because it was awkward, and they didn't find it funny, and they laughed, and we're just like, yeah, we're
crushing it.
Our specials.
Killing it.
Yeah. But yeah, that was our first experience, and when you get that one laugh, it does just drive you to, even if it's not a good one. And like I said, or they could be laughing because it's so awkward. That keeps you stuck on it, and I think that's why we probably kept doing it.
So how did you end up bringing it to Champaign then? Because that's what I want to know. I know you said you hit an open mic. How did you end up getting to the point where you were like, why aren't we doing this at home, right?
Yeah, we did the one in Peoria. Then I think a couple times in Bloomington there was the Laugh Comedy Club, which is since closed. But we did a couple of them because we just didn't want to do it in front of people we knew. At the time, there was a small open mic in Champaign, and that's it. There weren't shows. There weren't, and for what I know, there really wasn't.
Yeah.
So we're going back. Let me just put a timestamp on this because I'm bad with years. We're going back, let's say 11 years. So probably about 20. I'm gonna say 2009.
Yeah.
Roughly is what I'm thinking of. I'm pretty sure that's when I got started. And there was one small open mic at a bar called Memphis on Main, which has since closed. I got a feeling a lot of my sentences are gonna be capped with which is since closed, which is since closed over and over. But yeah, there was a small open mic at Memphis on Main, which at that time had kind of a reputation of being like a biker bar and stuff. But when we went there, I didn't think it really. The bikers would sit outside, and they were actually the most kind people. Sure, they just wanted to be left alone. Mm-hmm. So, but we went. That was the only one in Champaign, and like to be kind, it would be getting maybe 5 or 6 people, like the people who weren't signed up. Right. I mean, it was an open mic of very small proportions. Yeah. And then once in a while they'd get a crowd if there was a guy that did radio at the time that would come in, and the first show we ever did, unfortunately, was when the guy who would bring people, I can't remember his name, but he was on like 94.5 or something in town. But it was also our first time, and we brought 25 or 30 people. And this comes to a place where they're used to having, if they had 10 audience members, it was just like, put on your working boots, everybody.
Right, exactly. We're back,
But so there was probably had to be 65 some people there.
Nice.
And like half was ours, half was theirs. And it went really well.
Yeah.
Because 30 of our friends there, and they're going to laugh because they've never even seen us before or even thought of us doing this.
Right.
Since then, I can't get 3 of my friends to come. Like, they've seen me and we're like, we're done with this.
Sure. Yeah. We've got it. Yeah.
If they come to one of my shows, it's by, this is one of yours. And it's like happenstance. Yeah. It's... but the guy who ran the open mic, I think it was about 3 months later, the gentleman who ran it, because he lived pretty far away. I don't remember if he maybe I don't think it was a DUI, and I'm not. Let's that's a better story. He got a DUI. I'm not gonna say his name, so it doesn't matter. I don't know if that's what happened, but he didn't want to run it anymore. Yeah. And at the same time, Memphis on Main was getting new owners. Yeah. And they were much younger. Their name was Ben and Tiff Meyer. We ended up working with them for 5 years, but they bought the bar, and they were. At the time, they were younger than me. They were like 24, 25. And they loved, like, they wanted to get basically a new youthful type of crowd. Yeah. At the time, I was still considered youthful. Sure. Because 11 years ago. Long since passed. Oh, yeah. That store has closed. It's long since closed. My youthfulness. Yeah, the youthfulness Jesse store has long since gone. Gone before the pandemic. And so what we did is, he didn't want to do it, so... And this is the best and worst decision of my life. I just said, well, we'll run it. We'll take over. I'm 3 months in. Yeah. I know what I'm doing. Sure. We'll take it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't give advice to people. I never do. And if anybody's listening, thinking about doing it, don't do that. It is, with 3 months in,
crazy.
You don't know what you're doing. I did not. It was learning on the job.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't have done it, but we did. And then we just started promoting that one open mic. And it was every single Wednesday, open mic. We were getting paid just a little bit from the bar, like $40 a week or something, but then we actually started promoting it, which they'd never done before. Yeah. Now, granted, we had good timing because younger couple coming in. So all of it just kind of worked to where it started to be weekly, and it's not a lot, but there would be 20, 25 people there who weren't going on stage, which was triple, quadruple what they usually experience.
Yeah.
And over the course of 6 months, it just started growing, and then it just kept going from there.
Sure.
But that was our only open mic, and that's kind of how we started in Champaign. Then it kind of just delevated from there.
Well, see, when you say delevated from there,
is that a real word?
I don't know.
Okay, I used it, and when I said it, I was like, I wonder if he's going to call me out because I don't know.
Sorry, if it's not.
I think I meant deviated from there, but that may not be right. I like delevated.
When you delevated from the open mics, how did you go from doing the? You go from open mics. Now you guys have like paid shows, right? You guys are Soma, right? You guys are doing it there. How did you kind of get to that point? And when did you kind of realize like we've got something here? Like people are actually willing to pay to see this. How did you kind of realize like we've got something?
Yeah, I think we had done one or two like really small paid weekend shows at Memphis on Main. However, it was one of those, if anybody who's ever ran shows, or I think if they've been to enough like smaller kind of independent shows, know if the trouble comes if the stage is in the same room that the bar is in, that is just asking for problems.
Sure.
And now it worked better than it ever should have. And that's why we stayed so long at Memphis. But it was, you get a couple tables that come in that aren't there for that. And they're sitting in the, it's like, there's nothing you can do. Show's over, man.
Yeah.
Like it's, unfortunately, that's kind of where it came to. So we wanted to start reaching out and finding new places. Yeah. And we did like a comedy, like a small comedy festival in, I want to say 2012. Yeah. That sounds right. But we started working with a bunch of different buildings, just promoting like, well, let us run a show there. We'll work on the tickets and stuff. But we ran in like 5 or 6 different venues in Champaign. Like there's a back room at like Big Grove Tavern, Canopy Club. Yeah. I'm blanking on the other ones we did, but there was more venues that we did. And then we realized, because almost every one of them was sold out. Too. Yeah. Granted, they were a lot of 40, 50 seat rooms. Sure. But still, everyone was sold out. Right. I'm like, there's a market here. Like there's something for this. Yeah. And the manager from Soma at the time, again, this would be 2014, so it would be a couple years out, but a year after that, he was trying to redo like what their outlook was. They're trying to bring in new people to the venue and stuff. So he just flat out came and said, "What's it going to take for me to get you guys to come over here?" Right. The owners at Memphis on Main that we had worked for had just left. So like, I weirdly say I have like the most horrible timing of anybody, but for these, the timing was perfect. Sure. Like, these are the 2 instances where my timing was terrific. Yeah. And he just said, would this work? And then ours was like, we did that whole thing. It did work out. Right. It was like, let's try it. Yeah. And so we just started doing paid shows. Yeah. And it was just kind of throwing something into the water and seeing if there was a bite. Yeah. And there was. Sure. And then it just kept expanding from there. So it really was just it was really a what do we have to lose situation.
Sure. Well, and it seems like it is going well though, right? Or up until the pandemic, before you guys were able to have shows, it seemed like it was going well. I was seeing a lot of activity with the shows, and I want to talk about kind of like what happened with the pandemic, because I had to assume that brought you guys to a screeching halt, as it did a lot of places. You're no longer allowed to have crowds, right? Yeah. So tell us how it's hit you, where we're at with it right now.
Oh, those crowds. You hate them, but you need them.
Sure.
Those,
important for your role.
Yeah. Yes. Well, this is weird with the pandemic, is I try not to complain because we technically don't have an overhead in the sense of I don't own any of these properties. Because we run shows in a lot of different places throughout Central Illinois. But I don't have an overhead. Yeah. And a lot of people do. So I try not to complain about that. But God, it's just sucked so bad. Because January and February of 2020 were the 2 biggest months I've ever had in stand-up in 11 years. Oh man. Like we just signed with like 3 new places out of town that they wanted either bi-monthly or monthly shows. And I think I just sent this to somebody. It was because we were a little slow at the beginning of 2020. I think it was January 18th through February 28th, which is basically 6 weeks. Yeah. We had, I think, 15 ticketed events, and that's not counting our open mics, and all 15 were sold out in 9 different venues. Yeah. And we're talking, some of these were big, like we were like, there was like 200 people there. Sure. In like different places. And it was like, everything was going so well. And now it's like, we're restart. We technically have to start over because the saying it again, some of those places have closed since then. Right. And then some of them have moved on saying, we don't know if we may do something else. Like the places we signed outside of town. So it was, I don't like to complain, but gosh darn it, am I good at it? I'm going to complain. Man, it stunk on ice that we had to. So we're still in that pattern, but it hit us pretty hard. Yeah, because there's no way to do it. People do the Zoom
Right.
I don't know how to make money on that or to make it good. Like maybe somebody could.
Yeah.
It ain't me.
Right.
So, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. That was a downer. All right.
Dude,
what else you got?
It's almost like
Got a family member's funeral I'm going to talk about on there. What's on the list, Austin?
Dude, I feel like with you guys, it's going to be like season 2 of Stranger Things where you're spending just like a little bit of time in the Upside Down again, right? Where you're flashing back and forth between like things were going really good and like I'm hosting an open mic without really knowing.
Spoiler alert. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, guys.
No,
well, listen.
I've been around for 5 years. If I was going to watch it.
I hope that you have seen it by now if you haven't, but I feel like that's probably where you guys are
now.
Listen.
Yeah, but you're right. I think it's gonna take that time to.
I think it'll come back around faster than what you think here. Now, I know that with comedy, it seems like all things you have to get stage time, right? Like that's a key point of it, and stage rust is a little bit of a thing. I want you to know you don't have to worry about whether or not your next set is going good because I went ahead and made one for you here.
Yes.
So listen, here's the thing. I put together some jokes. Let me go ahead and get them ready here.
All right.
I got a nice little something for you. Let me pull this out, and you can just read through this. Again, there's no need to worry about whether or not it's going to go well. It's airtight, and it's going to get huge laughs.
Perfect.
So, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jesse Tuttle.
What's up, Champagne? It's been a while. You guys all look significantly fatter since the last time I saw you. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been on stage thanks to coronavirus. By the way, that virus really sucked. They should have called it Bush Light virus. Am I right? That stuff tastes like urine. Man, you guys, not me, but you guys are out of shape. Look at you. It's like you socially distance yourself from vegetables or something. Look at this guy. Look at this guy right in the front row. He isn't just overweight. He also looks really short. Hey, my man. Did you spend the whole pandemic eating your shins? Why are you so short? Tiny, pathetic man.
Oh no.
Oh, hey, whoa. Just kidding. That guy's actually pretty tall. And so are all of you. Thank you. Have a good night. Woo!
Dude, that went so well. Wait a second. Is that
an encore?
Is that? We've got ourselves an encore.
Oh!
They brought him back out.
Hey. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Also, I'll do a few more for you here. Speaking of the pandemic, now that we know China can manufacture something that lasts longer than a year, maybe spend a little more time on my iPhone. Am I right? Mine is always breaking. During the whole pandemic, I was told to try to get sunlight, drink more water, get outside when I can. This pandemic basically turned us into houseplants, didn't it? All right, that's enough jokes. You're the best. I love you, America. Good night. Woo!
See, dude, it's perfect, man. There's no need for you to worry about stage rust.
What was I worried about? I weirdly even went to a weird Southern accent thing,
dude.
and I don't know why.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Really went into it.
Oh, my gosh. See, I knew that was going to be a hit for you, man. Great work.
Wow, there was a little bit of foghorn leghorn in there for me, and I don't know why. That was my default.
No, that was kind of, I was putting, when I was writing this, I was picturing like a foghorn leghorn. So no, you actually crushed it really well. Listen,
if that's the only thing you show, like we tried to interview Jesse, and then there's just clips of me saying,
just telling these jokes,
doing fat shaming and all that. Like, oh man, I thought it was going to be tough already, but I'm gonna be getting in some trouble.
Dude, that was perfect.
It was my writers. I swear it was my writers.
That was exactly how I drew this up. Listen, I want to talk about some of your influences, and I want to tell you some of my favorite comedians too, because I'm a fan of stand-up. I've been into stand-up, watch it regularly. So I want to just kind of tell you some of my favorites, and then I want to hear some of the people that shaped you in your career. So for me, Dave Chappelle is probably my GOAT as far as like a joke writer. He's kind of transformed recently to where like some of the stuff he's put out has been more like profound, right? Where he's got like these deep points and some of like talks about the industry and some of like the social justice stuff that he's working on. But his specials, I think, in my opinion, they're top notch. I mean, he lights the room on fire. Right. An opposite side of the coin, Nate Bargatze and Brian Regan, the guys that are able to write clean humor.
Yeah.
That's a different ball game, right? Where
much.
You don't have the pop from saying something raunchy or from a good cuss word. Those guys are writing squeaky clean humor and somehow still able to do it.
Yeah.
Flip side of that coin, another one of my, probably I would say my top 2 or 3 for me is Big J Okerson.
Okay.
I love Big J. Yep. That dance that he does where he is able to bring in the audience for a second, just touches on them, and then he uses whatever they say to seamlessly transition from joke to joke. That is a wonderful art form. And another, like, flip side of the coin of audience involvement, but it's different, is kind of the roasters. That is also a special treat. Those guys that can kind of set you on fire. Jeff Ross, Anthony Jeselnik, Tony Hinchcliffe.
Sure.
I think about, there's one story in particular that I think of, is it was at the Brody Stevens Memorial. Brody Stevens, comedian, for those of you who don't know, took his own life tragically. He was a big part of the comedy scene. And they were at his memorial service. They were doing it at the Comedy Store in L.A., and a lot of comedians coming in and telling stories. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, and they brought in 3 of his childhood friends. And they went up there and they told stories about the type of good guy that he was. And Jeff Ross walks on stage after everyone is crying. These people are sobbing out there. And Jeff Ross walks on stage and says, you know, after hearing Brody's 3 best friends, it makes sense why he killed himself. And the place exploded because in that moment, it was exactly what everyone needed. Brody was a comic. He went in, and just the internal fortitude that it takes to be like, I'm going to go for this joke in the craziest time. There's something special about the guys that find a way to do that without just coming across as straight mean. Right. But at the same time, you see someone like Tony Hinchcliffe, when you watch some of his sets online, he zeroes in on someone and he starts slowly walking across the stage looking at you. You almost wince where you're like, oh boy, here we go. So I want to know, who are some of your favorites? Tell me some of the people that kind of influenced you that you like watching. And if you were going to suggest like a new fan of comedy, watch some specials or something like that, who are some people that you really admired and kind of shaped who you are as a comedian?
Okay, let me think. My again, this is another kind of a boring answer. The one I liked a lot, even though I'm vastly different to him, I was always a big George Carlin fan, but that's kind of such a commonality answer.
Sure.
I loved, when I was a kid, I loved George Carlin. I think I started listening to him probably 96, so I was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
And like I just found out Carlin. And then I loved all of his, but I know people, and I even agree with some people when they say like as he went on, like what wasn't really funny, I looked at it as more of like a one-man show. It was speaking, like from the terms of him speaking, I thought he was an amazing performance kind of artist. And I'm even now I'm big on where's the joke. Like and he didn't have that, but I'm like, he's Carlin. He can do what he wants. Like it was at that point, you're watching Carlin, you weren't really watching stand-up.
Sure.
A little bit different. As I went on, I'm trying to think. I have such a weird things that make me laugh. Like a lot of the people that I like the most, I don't even want to say I'm influenced by it because my style is nothing like theirs.
Sure.
Which is weird. Like I've always, like a long time I've been a big fan of Jim Jeffries. Like there's a little stuff that I try to take away from him. Just like what he does, his cadence a little bit, but like my style is nothing like his at all. I'm trying to think of people that. Wow. Let me try to think of some more. You know what's weird now? I'll go into this. Is I really don't watch a lot of stand-up in terms of the specials. Like I've seen like some of the Chappelle ones, and if there's some bigger ones, I'll watch. My problem is, especially when we were running like at least 2, maybe 3 paid shows a week, plus 2 open mics a week. I was getting to the point for the last like at least 2 or 3 years where I'm like, I watch stand-up.
Interesting.
All the time. Like I'm just constantly having to view it and see it to where it's like, hey, on your off time, do you want to watch a stand-up special? No. Like I don't want to. It's like I'm so sick of watching stand-up.
I'm not interested in talking insurance on my off time.
What I started doing, I think what my interest started being was I like watching my friends and like the people that I booked. And I liked watching them do stand-up and more than watching a Netflix special or an old Comedy Central special.
Interesting.
There's stuff like even the old Carlin specials. I used to watch them probably once every year. Like I don't think I've seen it for five years now. Because I'm so sick of watching stand-up. But I like watching my friends do it. I like watching, or when I do my open mic, I like watching their first time. It's like, oh, this is what I want to watch. And that's that's kind of what I watch to like get myself motivated to do it, no matter how it goes. If it goes great, it's like this person's 4th time and they're already having good jokes. Like I better get on my game. Or wow, was that bad? And it's like, okay, get your stuff together because that can't be you. Like you've been doing this for 10 years. It's their 5th time. They have an excuse. You don't. And that kind of motivates me.
Gotcha.
One of the ones I'll try to give somebody I think people should listen to. or try to see live if they can. There's a guy by the name of Stuart Huff, and a lot of people don't know him, but he's one of those guys. Every comic I know says the same thing. He should be bigger than what he is.
Yeah.
But it's almost, and I've talked to Stuart about this. I'm friends with him. He's originally from Georgia. I think
he's been down here, right?
A couple, 3 or 4 times. I always say he's kind of like a Southern version of George Carlin in a way, but he has such a amazing way of bringing people in when because it's very point driven stuff, but he's funny with it. And it's like I've seen him almost change people's minds on stuff because he's not beating you over the head with, hey, I'm right, you're wrong. Yeah. He makes jokes and he has such great angles on stuff. I know he has a lot of CDs. It's StuartHuff.com. I'll give Stuart a free plug. Stuart, you owe me $5.
That's right.
If you hear this. But I love
Stuart, you owe me $5 too, man.
He really, yes. Yeah. It's a split. We're doing this. Yeah. 5 to him, 5 to me. We're getting 10%. But he is. I have yet to see somebody who watched him, especially as a comedian, watch him and not go just like he's one of my new favorite comedians. Yeah. So he's probably one of my absolute favorites. Plus, he's just a delightful man. He's a very, very nice guy to deal with. But he's been doing it for years, and he's one of those. I've asked him like, why don't he doesn't like doing news shows. He doesn't like doing radio stuff. Yeah. He just doesn't want to do it. And he's like, I like doing what I'm doing. He's just like, if that comes with more money, it does. If not, I'm happy doing this. And that's such a cool mind frame for somebody because a lot of times people will do anything to get, if it'll get them 10 extra Instagram followers in 30 seconds of somebody famous watching, they'll stab their friends in the back. Right. Like, it's so fickle the way it works. And I think he's the exact opposite. So, but plus his stand up is just, he's definitely the guy to try to watch live because it's a different vibe to him. But he's definitely one I would say, Stuart Huff.
See, that's interesting to me. I guess I didn't even think about the idea of like you're surrounded by comedy, right? So like whenever it is your job and it's something like you were being paid to do, like how much of that do you want to consume outside of work hours?
Yeah, right? I'm also just sometimes mentally lazy and temperamental. So to watch stand up all the time and then watch other stand up, it's just like I'm sick of this. I don't want to watch this anymore.
Yeah. Well, I would think it almost like you don't want it to like. I would think you're already. It doesn't matter what your career is. Burnout could be a risk, and if you're like, I got to watch this new special, or I want to watch this new special, and you've already been watching comedy for 7 hours that day, or and like I just took down the set. I guess I'll pop on another comedy special. Clock back in,
it really is. It's just like I just came from watching stand up, and a lot of my shows, obviously, like I don't even watch as much as I probably should. I just come from like there's a lot of different promoters who used to do this in different genres, but I'm big on just listening and not so much listening to what the person's saying. I'm listening to the crowd. Yeah, like I could be outside because at Soma there's like a curtain and I can be right outside where I can still kind of hear, but I can always hear the laugh. I could be way down at the bar, which is in a separate room, and if there's a laugh and I hear it, I'll just lean back and go, it's going good. Right. And if I keep hearing those, I'm like, going good. And I'll just check back in sometimes. Sure. Because I get my anxiety and stuff sometimes. Just to be in the room the whole time is like waning. And plus I have other things to do with getting checks ready, dealing with the bar, managing the other performers. But mine's big, and I'll do all the time. I'll just be listening. It's like, it's been a while since I've heard I haven't heard much. How's it? Right. My brother or somebody who's monitoring the room will come out and I'll ask him like, how's it going? I'm like, I haven't heard much. They're like, yeah, it's okay. It's and then I'll hear a big laugh. I'm like, okay, that's good. Okay, right. Yeah. They're back. Okay, good. Nice. So that's kind of how that's almost listen to stand up anymore.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But that's coming from a showrunner perspective more than a fan of it perspective.
Well, that's what I was about to say is like, you are running the show. You are a part of the show. You're the promoter. You're wearing all the hats right now. Right. Whereas a lot of comedians are doing one, or any promoter's doing one, or a club, whatever the showrunner is doing, they're doing that one job. You're kind of taking on all of it right now, which is a unique thing right now.
Yeah. I call myself sometimes a player manager. Like old Pete Rose did it with the Reds for a couple of seasons. I'm doing it now. Yeah. I have better hair, but that's it. Completely bald. But no, because it is hard. It's why I'll end up hosting shows, the ones I run, more than actually performing. Yeah. Because now it's a little bit. I don't know how it's going to be coming out of this. But we have less shows that we're doing. But when we were doing 2 open mics a week plus 2 paid shows, maybe 3 a week, 5. There's a lot that goes in just because I'm dealing with every person, every ticket, like all the seating plus the venues plus the performance. Like I always complain that's like it's like a full-time job. I'm like, it is a full-time. Yeah, it's and plus this is my own fault. I'm so anal retentive and legit like ADHD. Like I'm bad. Like they give me medication and thank God for it for ADHD because I can't do it. Like there's just so much going on. I get overwhelmed. And then another reason why I'm not always in the room, but I'm just listening. I'll always have somebody in there in case we have to kick somebody out, which is rare. Right. But yeah, that's kind of how I watch stand up anymore, and it's hard when you have to do both because the running the show, especially you have a lot. It does kind of take over because that's, to me, that's more important than me performing. Like, I don't care about, that's why I'll host a lot, because it's just like, you go up, you do 3 or 4 minutes, and then you do a little bit in between. You just make sure to hit your marks, and you have make sure you have your times down. I like that. For me, that's more my speed. I'm usually pretty good at it. Like, I think I'm better at hosting than some of the other elements of stand-up.
Sure.
So that's kind of what I've weaned off into, but it's worked.
Nice. So I know you've been in the game of comedy for a long time. I want to know, comedy changes, right? And you can look back on some of these old jokes, like where it has changed from 10 years ago to now. And what you're seeing a lot more with social media is the social pressure for different jokes, things that are okay, things that are not. What are you seeing with that, right? Like, are you seeing the impacts of the shows that you do where things like that how is the PC stuff impacting comedy, where it's almost seen as almost like a one of the last vestiges of being able to say like messed up stuff, right?
Right.
How are you seeing that?
I'm seeing a little bit like if I go and I do somebody's podcast, they'll write out like some fat jokes for me to do. And like,
sure, yeah, right.
I'll see that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
No, I'm kidding. No, okay, here's the thing is I always tell people it'd be easier for me to answer. How do you feel about it? Give me like, what do you think? Like in terms of like how, because I'll tell you why this makes it easier for me to answer.
Yeah.
But what is your opinion on it?
I think that there's always, I think anyone that is like, I hate all of it is in the wrong, and anyone that's like, we need to really be careful about every single thing that we say is in the wrong too. I find myself in the middle. I personally am still someone who I laugh at things that are inappropriate. I don't necessarily even want to. The things that really kill me are a well-timed inappropriate joke where it splits me in half. I can't take it. I laugh so hard. Right. And I think that almost like the fact that it is no longer acceptable and then someone drops something that is so wildly inappropriate, it really gets me.
Right.
It makes me laugh very hard.
Right. Okay, and that's why I asked, is because as somebody I have to look at it from 2 different points of view, and they're both different. I have to look at it from someone who is a performer and a fan.
Yes.
You know, and then I have to look at it as someone who is a showrunner, who is almost in a weird way responsible for what happens on stage. And my opinions on it are two vastly differently when I'm looking on that. As somebody who's a showrunner, it's because even as a performer, I'm still 99% of the time I'm going to be on the comedian side, unless I can tell. I've done it long enough to where I can tell if someone made a joke that didn't work or someone was saying something to offend people, and it's context. Yeah, and I'll get back to that in a second. But I think context is huge. As a performer, I think again it's kind of the same thing in a way, but like then it's just like you should be able to say whatever you want in context.
Yes, because
I feel like a lot people just listen to, for lack of a better term, just trigger words. They listen to this person said this word. I'm like, but how was it used? It doesn't matter. They said it. It's like, well, actually, the only thing that matters is how they said it. Was there any, and plus it's intention. Was there intention to be offensive?
Right.
It's fine if it's offensive and it's funny. Yeah. And that always goes to subjective. Yeah. Just because we all think it's funny, like, because I'm the same as you, like offensive thing, like I'm a big Bill Burr fan. I'm big like I saw Gilbert Gottfried live, and if you're going in to watch Gilbert Gottfried, like I got to open for Gilbert. If you're going in like someone like that, and you're just like I'm easily offended, I'm like I'll tell you what, go get your money and just leave. Because he is gonna make. But that's what he does. Right. Like when someone, I think people who are performers kind of. If people don't know you, it's harder. I know you want to make a name for yourself, but it's also people didn't really pay to see you. You shouldn't be the one. You got to take it a little easier. Like you can't just go out and boom, boom, boom. If you're going to see like a Gilbert Gottfried or a Bill Burr, it's just like if you paid to see them and you don't know what they do, like why are you there? Like, it's like at this point you should know what they do. I went to see a horror movie and I was so offended because there was blood in this. I'm like, you went to see a horror movie. Right. Like what did you think was going to happen? Whereas if you're very new and no one knows you, it's like there's a lot of times they're not going to be on your side. Right. And so as a showrunner, I try to always be on the performer side. There's only been a few times where somebody in the crowd like upset him or something, and we'll always try to kick him out, if it's to that. But then like the performer, they lost control of the situation and they just got mean, and it wasn't funny mean. That's not funny. It wasn't handling. It wasn't handling a heckler situation. It was. I mean, and understandably, the person who was heckling Robert, they were wrong to go, but then you lost control of it, and you said some stuff, and that's when I'm not on the performer side. Like, get them, go mean if you have to, but there's a line, and that's where it comes back to context. Right. What someone says isn't near as important as how they say it or who's saying it. Right. you can get away with a lot when people know who you are, because that's your thing. And how you say it to me, and this is just me, I think that's vastly more important than what you say.
Yeah.
There's certain things, if you say it, it's certain words, it's just like, there's not going to be a lot of defending. There's not.
I agree.
No, you can. Any joke can be done by anybody. I think, because like, even if you're not in that circle, if you can still make a joke about it, you better make sure it's good.
Right.
Because if it falls flat, all I'm going to tell people, and that's as a showrunner, I've had people, and it's not a lot. It's less than people would think. I've had people complain after shows, like, oh, they said this, I was offended by that, and I'm just like, well, were you offended by the other 99%? No.
Yeah.
Well, then you had a good time, didn't you?
Right.
It's like, I'm not defending it.
Yeah.
So usually I'll be on the performer side, unless there's just once in a great while where it's like, dude, you're on your own on that one, because I can't back you, man. I'm sorry. I want to, but I'm like, they were right. You just said something mean.
Well, one of my favorite things about stand-up comedy is that it is the ultimate free market. If it's funny, it gets laughs, right? Like, so if you can make the joke work in a way that works, you will get laughs from the crowd. If it's a bad joke and you have just like, I'm not a fan of like edgelord comedy where they just push, because that's kind of what
fun. That's what I was talking about,
right?
The context. Yeah.
That's not the same thing. But the ones that find a way to say something that is not okay, and they find a way to weave it into where everyone in the crowd, most of the people in the crowd are like, it was well done, right? You know what? And I am a fan of those people that find a way to do that. And I don't I'm not someone like, I don't say things offensively to try and like get a rise out of people. That's not my style.
Sometimes they're just funny. Like,
but sometimes you just find people that say things that can be terrible on paper, but in that moment, it was a beautifully crafted joke.
And that's where it goes back. Context. There was a reason it was said. Like you said, if you take it on paper and just slide it to somebody, it's not funny. But it's like, but in the moment, because they talked about this before. There was an element in the room that they could pick up on. That's why it was funny. It was context. Timing and context are so important. Yep. And I'm not gonna go off on a long story because I know I talked too long. But case in point, one time, myself and my brother, we did a show opening for a comic who's been around forever called Bruce. It's his name. Been around forever. Very big in the black community. Like, he even I swear we walked in and he even said, I don't know if he was joking, but there were people wearing colors at his show where he's just like, hey, don't seat these two. Like, they're wearing red, they're wearing this. Like, don't sit them together. Sure. I thought he was joking. He wasn't joking. He was not joking. We did 5 shows in Peoria. All 5 were sold out. So it's like 200 people each show. Out of all of those people, I think besides me and my brother, we saw maybe 4 other white people. In the crowd, in the bill. That's it. That's the only one. Sure. And we went up and we didn't know exactly if we should or not. I did a little bit of race stuff. It's just like, I did it very just tippy-tap. Just a little bit. My brother did the exact opposite of that. And he said, you know what? And he went harder on the race stuff than I have ever seen a human being go harder. There are rallies where there is less. I mean, he wasn't mean about it. It was all good jokes. They were sure. That crowd loved him. Loved him. Right. They had 2 complaints all weekend. Can you guess who complained? The 2 white people. Right. I'm not kidding. Not one. The other ones, they like some of the black people come up and they'd be like, one guy directly came up. He came up to me. He's just like, "You're bold talking about all that." And I'm like, "Oh no, you mean that gentleman over there, my twin brother?
You're looking for that guy over there."
But they all were like, they were the greatest crowd. They loved. They were fine with it. The 2 white people were we got to do this because they weren't looking at it in the context that a lot of the other members of the crowd were. Sure. They were looking as like, that's offensive. Like, as it turns out, no, it wasn't, because you were. There's people like that too, where there's a certain element of people who are just going to find anything they can to be offended by. Some people just don't like offensive comedy, and that's cool, but they're going to hate all of it. Right. And that's with that story. That's what I meant, was usually a lot of times the people who are offended are people who, everybody who the joke was about, we were joking, they thought it was funny. Yeah. And so it's just like, who's to say what it is and what it isn't? Right. But it's you can't please everybody, but if you can please the ones that you're making the joke about, context wise, I think it's okay.
Well, it's art. Not everyone's gonna like a painting. Not everyone's gonna like a song, right? What you're doing is an art form, right? So you just can't hit everybody. But being able to make it work in the room that you're in, I feel like is
absolutely
the biggest part.
It's all context, because like there's no way we should have been able to say that kind of stuff in front of that. We should. I mean, and again, nothing was mean spirited. Sure, there was a little bit of the roasting stuff, but it's like, but that's what that crowd liked and wanted. Context and timing.
Exactly.
In a different crowd, maybe it wouldn't have worked and they would have been offended. There's a good chance that could have happened. Sure. That crowd wasn't. And I think they almost appreciated that it was like, okay, they're not walking on eggshells and stuff. They're not treating us like, like, oh, children, you have. It's like, no. Sure. It's like, they were cool. 5 of the coolest crowds we've ever done. Like, ever. And they were complimentary afterwards. Sure. And then it was like, oh, thank God, because that could have went a different way real quick.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So listen, I have one last question for you here, and I know that you said you don't like to give advice, but
sure.
I want to know, someone who's getting started, if there's someone out there watching right now, they say, look, I'm interested in getting into stand-up. I'm a fan. I want to know how to make a path into this world. What advice would you give to someone who's new, they're thinking about doing their first open mic? What would you tell them?
Don't.
Stay away.
And there we go.
Yeah, right. Thanks for watching episode 3 of the Paigncast.
There we go. No, what I would say is, as honest advice is, one, don't get ahead of yourself too quick. I think it's what I did. It's what my brother did. It's what every comic I've ever known does. Is you go in thinking, I got to get my 45 minutes so I can get on Netflix. And it's like, just try to get 5 minutes.
Sure.
Just work, not on 5 minutes you've done on stage. Get 5 minutes that is usable at any show, any place, so you have it. Because when you start, more times than not, you're not going to be given more than that time.
Yeah.
But anybody who's responsible in giving time out and shows and stuff, you're not going to get more than that in the first year and a half anyway. Like 5 or 6 minutes. That's all you need.
Yeah.
And if you can really focus on that one, it'll make you less overwhelmed too.
Yeah.
Like, I got to get 45 minutes no matter 5 or 6 minutes. That's all you need. Find good open mics, find good people. There's some open mics, like in other places that I've been to, like kind of like a toxic mentality where it's just they're coming in and taking my spot and like taking your spot on an open mic in front of 10 people. Shut up.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, just, baby steps, get in good. If you're in a good crowd, like in Champaign, it's like this, ask questions because not just for me, most of the performers that have been doing it for a while, if you ask them questions, they're going to be nice to you. Like we have a really good stable here. If you do stand up, just try to get a few minutes in. I know it's nerve-wracking. Ask questions to the people you know have been doing it for a while. It'll save you so much time. Like instead of trying to figure it out by yourself, just ask. Like it's a lot of times people won't even give you straightforward do this, that. It's options. They'll give you options. And if you have a really good showrunner, he's not going to be offended if you give him some tips. So
there you go.
By that, but I don't mean your advice. I mean money. We're not running shows, folks. I need money.
I love it. Listen, for a guy who doesn't give advice, that was pretty good advice.
Oh man, I bamboozled you too. All right.
I loved it. Real quick, before we get out of here, give us your plugs one last time.
Sure.
Tell us where people can find you.
We can go to cucomedy.com. You can also follow CU Comedy on Instagram and Twitter at CU Comedy. Jesse Tuttle Comedy on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter anymore. And then just Champaign Urbana Comedy on Facebook. That's probably one of the better follows because a lot of our instant, outside of our website, a lot of our instant announcements are straight towards Facebook. So at Champaign Urbana Comedy, just follow us, like us on there, and message. My email's on there, jesse@cucomedy.com if you have any questions. And we have a couple of shows coming up, but those are all on the website. So just look on there.
Sweet. Nice. Well, I appreciate you doing this, dude. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Austin. I appreciate it. It's fun, man.
Episode 3 of the Paigncast. Thank you for checking it out. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and we will see you guys next time.